Three, two, one. Let's do it. Welcome to Elk Radio. This is Ian Kibblewhite, Elk Radio, Show 1, Part 2. Where we left off in our Show 1, Part 1, was I talked about how Australia's the lucky country, how beautiful we are, and indeed, what a place to live. Now, at the same time, just in between our radio takes, I got a message and a call from my wife, Emma Sheh, if you pronounce the name properly, to meet her Hungarian heritage. And what a beautiful, amazing mother and wife, with all the love and overcooking of massive meals and temper that comes with the marriage to an amazing Hungarian. I'm just so glad I made that decision. We've got a family of 5 beautiful children: Maya, Xavier, Jada, Phoenix, and River. So that's my clan. But as I said, I got a message, and wouldn't you just love to have acreage without the snakes? We had a regular test and control type treatment, and they found quite a large, apparently massive diamond python snakeskin. Now, if you're going to have a snake, that's a snake to have, there's no doubt. But imagine how amazing our acreage would be without the snakes. Oh, wait a second, that's New Zealand, isn't it? Or England. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to England, though. So I have talked to them about, wouldn't it be nice to live in New Zealand, but look, they don't play the right type of football over there. That really rules that out. And in part 1, I also commented about my perfection next to cleanliness. Don't you find it interesting when you actually see you go to the shops, and especially at the moment, we've got our 1.5 metre social distancing, and then people walk through and they've got these hand sanitizers that are sitting there on this kind of stand. The stand's a bit wobbly, and I found it hilarious the other day when there's people in front of me. They went up and first they touched this hand sanitizer. So at 5 o'clock in the day, my question is, how many people through the day have touched that hand sanitizer to start with? Let's take that hand sanitizer to be a sensor sanitizer, please. Let's remove the need for contact and just have the ability to put our hand under it. So yeah, we get what we need and we move on without having to touch. And the problem is, these sanitizers, when you do touch them, I haven't touched them by the way, I carry my own, but they put their hand up against it and then nothing comes out. And when nothing comes out, the look on this person's face was priceless. Oh God, what do I do now? And so you then proceeded to go to the trolley section where there's apparently feel free to grab your own hand wipes. Grab the hand wipes and they're all dry. It was just a calamity of errors. And this is not a great word, calamitous. Watching the Anzac Day service on TV and the interviews, and weren't people in the 1900s didn't they speak so well? This 90-year-old World War II veteran, and he's using this language. It's just so well spoken, and the language is calamitous. That word came up, and I thought, what a beautiful word, even though the meaning is quite opposite. It means a series of events that is a calamity and perhaps didn't go as it should have, but calamitous. And I suppose that does come back to what I commented as New Zealand and as England. And we're not going to go to England, but maybe in the future if my son Xavier does what he's built for and becomes that professional footballer and goes to that next level, that 1% in the world, not 1% in Australia, but 1% in the world, wouldn't that be special? Maybe we'll find ourselves on acreage without the snakes, with all the grey skies and everything else that goes along with that. But we certainly won't be moving there at the moment with everything that's going on. But I suppose it does come back to the fact that our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents did stem from, the United Kingdom, and they do speak really well. That's certainly something I think that's been lost maybe in modern times, and maybe it's just the Australian accent, and I'm certainly of the Australian dialect, because there's certainly different ways in which people sound. I probably sound different to people in Queensland, and maybe it's a merger of moving up here 20 odd years ago that I sound a bit different to people from Sydney even now. So with that, we've certainly got a way of speaking, and you're going to see that come through in our radio shows. Certainly a way of writing, and I am one that loves the the ability to write a letter properly, and then even to put that way of writing into an email, because email is now the new form of writing letters in a lot of respect, and people have all different kinds of views on how to write an email and what emails are used for. Look, our rule is within ELK, it's got to be written because that's to the best ability, because that's our product. That's part of your client experience. It's part of a bite-sized communication of a series of communications that totals what you're doing with us, that's been laid out really clear at the start. And that's my why for today. Let's get to the start of your experience with us. The ELK full client model experience. So the ELK full client model experience, what is it? Well, it's someone like you, a positive person keen to get ahead, or someone that wants to know what they should do because they're just not seeing the answers anywhere else from their incumbent advisors, their existing incumbent finance broker, financial advisor or planner, accountant that often have the blinkers on and only look at one part of their total financial position. How do you do that? How do you look at a client's situation and go, I'm just going to talk about finance, or I'm just going to talk about insurance, and then neglect everything else that's going on? It's impossible to do it properly, at least. And then, if you go deeper than that, what is one of the main things that banks have asked for previously, recently? It's people's expenses, living expenses. They want to know the ins and outs of someone's cash flow. They want to know how much they're spending on Netflix. And then from there, they then extrapolate that out to determine a client's total living expenses. But after that, does anyone help you with that? Does the bank offer any support or assistance, one, to put that together? Or two, once they've seen that information, to actually do something with it? No. We do. It's where it all starts. It's about ELK expense economics. Getting into, and you may not like to do it, but you got it. You need to know where your money's being spent. And so you need to complete an ELK expense economics. It's part of our app. And that ELK expense economics, it's called a tool, allows you to pinpoint exactly where everything's being spent. Your inflows, your income, any other income in the form of dividends or rent, any tax savings. So real tax minimization advantage that might deliver tax savings to you. What is it? And then what are the expenses? And we're going to line item every single one of those. And then from there, we're going to see how can we help you with those? How can we reduce those expenses? And how can we identify savings? Small percentile in some instances, or in some instances very large, into the thousands and thousands of dollars savings to help you then direct that money, that saving, as just cash back in your pocket, and then with intention do something else with that. So we do that through our ELK expense economics, which is the first step with ELK. And then coinciding that is what we call our mini financial needs analysis, our mini FNAP, where we ask 7 questions, and from that we can profile your information and see exactly what your situation looks like, and what your needs are, and what your issues and efficiencies are, and where the pathway, and what the pathways that you need to go down, what it, as a mud map, looks like. But certainly we can't just leave it at that. That's where we then have our first appointment, our sit-down. And that's what this Part 2 radio show is about, or Part 2 of our radio show number 1. That's what it's about. So with that, we firstly sit down, we come into an environment, which might be a phone link or video link communication, and we're going to get to know each other. And from there, to ensure you get the maximum value from your time with us, we're going to then propose an agenda. And so for that agenda, we're going to firstly get to know you, and it's all about you. We're going to drill down on that, because numbers are our commodity. And from that, your numbers will then tell us the story, what's currently happening, and what needs to happen going forward. We're going to give you a bit of information about ELK, so you're comfortable with our credentials and experience. So we'll touch on that. Then, from drilling down in your situation, looking at your current client needs analysis, your fact find. So the fact find is your total financial position and personal data, what your numbers look like, what your attitude to risk is, and all those other things that are important to us. It might be boring to you, but let me tell you, once you take ownership of it, and until the day you take ownership of it, you're probably right to neglect it. Not really, but I can understand why you don't look at it. So then from there, those numbers, we look at what those numbers mean to you with some projections. So what is your total tax that you're paying? What's your total mortgage cost? What's your retirement shortfall? So those projections then allow us to look at, well, what do you need? That's then the formation of a business case. Because when you analyze something, you see what its issues are. You start to see, well, that's what you need to fix, isn't it? And then you go, well, how do you fix that? So we start to map out a mud map based on that information, because we have expertise. We can do that now. We can do that live. We don't have to go away. We don't have to plug it into a computer and see what a computer says. We know how to structure things. Structured solutions is what we do as part of a strategy. And then from that, we then go, okay, we've got a mud map. We go away and test it, of course. We test it and check it and test it and check it and squeeze it, and what pops out at the end is something that you can't hurt yourself on. Then we'll outline benefits, of course. There's always got to be benefits. And then the next steps. So, about you. What does a typical elk client look like? Well, it's an Australian that works, has income, that may not work, needs help, and that ranges from the employee through to the business owner, through to a high net wealth sophisticated investor. We look after the full spectrum of Australian households and SME, small to medium enterprise. Why? Because our credentials and experience allow us to. So in leading to build Elk, I've worked across a major bank, running in some instances commercial banking acquisition for deals up to $100 million and everything in between. So the skills and experience we have is significant. Dealing with transactions that are cash flow based, through to international trade based, through commercial property development finance based, through to home and investment loans, through to investments, through to valuing properties as assets, looking after portfolios of 150 mil, or in its own right, writing transactions up to 100 mil. So, guys, we've got the skills and ability to dive deep no matter what your needs are. And then with that, so we've got to know you, and we've got our credentials and experience understood. We then go to work on really drilling down on your numbers. So we'll look at, okay, let's just do an example here. So we've got a household, and that household has two incomes. That is income earner 1, income earner 2. Income earner 1 might be 100 grand or 120 grand. Income earner 2 might be, say, 40 to 60 grand. Let's call it 50 grand. So 120 and $50,000. And it can be plus minus. It could be 100 grand and nothing. It could be 60 and 60. It could be 30 and 70. Don't worry about the income to be a requirement to qualify to be a member of Elk. It's not what it's about. If you're positive and want to get ahead, well, that's what we ask for. Then we work with you. So that household is an income of, say, 120 and 50K for the purpose of this exercise. And then from there, that person or that household owns a house, and that house might be worth, say, $800,000. And they might have a mortgage of, say, $350,000. About the average in terms of mortgage or home mortgages, what they used to be. I'm certainly sure it's gone up now in some of the southern states, and even in the southern or that southeast Queensland corridor, that certainly would have risen as well. Southeast Queensland, the corridor, that triangle between the border with Kingscliff out to, say, Greater Springfield, Ipswich, Toowoomba, up into the top of that triangle past Caloundra into the Sunshine Coast proper. So in that region, and those regions southern to that number's certainly gone above that average mortgage value. And in their position, their super. Well, their super would be, say it's a balance of 180 for income earner 1 and 60 or even 40 for income earner 2. So with those numbers, that household has 3 children, and they've really got no strategy or structure. What they've got is the old way of doing things, where they've got their bank-issued home loan. And look, we can see things a lot more detail than that. You can see situations where that same kind of household may also have an investment property with an investment loan. They've gone and acquired themselves, and they've gone to their bank, and the bank is what we call cross-collateralized that. They've put that existing investment property and loan against their home. So that means they've got a whole lot more of extra debt, extra contingent liability, and real debt against their home, increasing their risk, increasing their exposure, taking away control. So that's an example. And if you start to see a cobweb where you've got multiple properties with one lender with cross-collateralization, so they're coupled and secured against each other, that's a problem. But let's keep it simple, because today's about talking to and about a simple plan. So what's a simple plan look like for a client situation as I've just described? Now, with that, before we get to putting a strategy and structure in place and then seeing what the solution is, we need to see, well, why would we even do that? I'm not going to talk to someone about something just for the sake of it. We need to then go, well, what's your numbers mean to you? And that's why at that point we've done an ELK expense economics and understood their complete cash flow, ins and outs. But then also a client needs an analysis background. And through that, to get to these numbers that I described, we're going to ask questions. And those questions you may not be comfortable with. But the best client advisor or member and coach relationships are about having transparent communication and being able to talk clearly and tell you or hear from you in regards to what needs to be said and heard. That's how you get the best from those relationships. So we've got a situation where that household, that corporation, because it's your corporation, has a income, and that income, let's represent that as a circle. So imagine you draw a circle here. Imagine you draw a circle on a bit of paper in front of you. And that circle, like a pie, indicates your income for your corporation. Now, I'm going to pause for a sec, guys. I know you don't have a video of me right now, and the team's been pushing for me to get a video going. We'll get that happening in relation to supporting these radio shows. It's about, again, being the shadow. I see him there, I see him there, I see him everywhere. I'm moving everywhere all the time, what we do. So we'll get the video which will support this, but I'm going to explain this and paint a picture for you. Okay. So we've drawn a circle. That circle represents a pie. That pie represents your corporation, your income. And in this example, it's 120K plus 50K, a total household position of 170K. What's the first thing that comes out of that income? It's the tax. So the first thing that comes out of that is the tax you pay. Now, we need to pay tax, but as Terry Packer said, anyone who pays tax and doesn't do everything they're legally able to try and reduce tax, he said he's a fool. So, well, he's a smart man, so I'm going to say that as well. It's foolish not to do that. You need to take control and see, well, how can you get access to tax minimization advantages to help you reduce that tax and put it to work for you? Because it's great to pay tax to help us have the best country in the world and to have the lifestyle, or a lifestyle at a minimum, not a lifestyle you deserve, but a lifestyle at a minimum that makes us comfortable in most respects. Not all Australians are in that situation, I understand that. But as a general comment, that would be, I think, a fair one. So in terms of that, it's not about trying to avoid tax, far from it. It's about paying tax, but getting access to the tax minimization advantages you should be able to help you get ahead. Because we need to plan ahead. We need to do things to future-proof ourselves. And the government gives us access to tax minimization advantages to help us do that, because they know that the pension and other retirement schemes aren't going to be enough. You've got to do stuff for yourself. Take control, take action. So in that, your corporation, that circle, with 170 grand of income, the tax, and just on an estimate, it might be, say, 120K might be about 30K, being conservative, and then on 50 it might be, say, 10 to 12. Let's say that to put an appropriate picture, let's say it's $45,000 of tax that comes out. And this household, let's say they're aged 45 years of age. So they're 45, and based on the retirement age, they've got about 20 to 22 years left working, up to about the retirement age of 65 or 67. So if they're paying tax of $45,000 a year for the next 20 to 25 years, then, and it's about that, how much tax are they paying? So 45,000 by the, say, the 22 is $990,000 in tax. Let's think about that. Let's look at it as compared to your numbers. So your corporation has income or revenue coming in of $170,000. It might be a variation of that, so do your own numbers. Then multiply, have a look at the tax you're paying, and then multiply that by the amount of years you're going to keep on working. If you earn that money, the first thing that happens is you pay the tax. It's not going to go away unless you actually do something about changing that. In this instance, it's just shy of $1 million, $990,000. Okay? So from there, what we've got is a situation where, in that your corporation, the tax comes out. And then what comes out next? And what comes out next is your mortgage. Because you're either owning a home with a mortgage or you're paying rent. If you're paying rent, there's nothing wrong with that. You might be doing that because you've got something else in place, such as an investment property, and you're renting to have the lifestyle you want. But if you're paying rent, then that means the money you're paying in rent after tax isn't going towards anything in terms of an asset. And the Great Australian dream to own a Great Australian home, that home is the last tax-free asset. You don't pay capital gains tax on a home. So owning a home is a smart move in a lot of respects. But let's get back to the point of today, the mortgage. So if your mortgage cost comes out next, and let's just say in that $350,000 mortgage, and an estimate here, guys, might be that payment is, say, $2,500 a month, maybe $3,000, let's say $3,000 a month with current rates. And that loan has 25 years left to run. In some instances, what we see traditionally is more like 28, 27 years. And so people have 27, 28 years left in their mortgage, but they're going to retire in, say, 20 to 22. How does that work? Well, look, the reality is as you get close to the end of your loan, you're going to start increasing payments and possibly, and most likely, possibly and probably, shave off some of that loan term. So that will reduce that loan term to fit. But what happens there is you've got, it's all you doing all the heavy lifting. It's all your income paying off that mortgage to just get a debt-free home when you retire. And so you've earned the money to pay the tax, to pay your mortgage, to end up with a debt-free home. And that home is in line with the average property values in Australia, or in this instance, just a bit above. So as your home goes up and down in value, so is everywhere else. So the strategy of perhaps selling down using some of that equity to help fund your retirement maybe doesn't really work. So in a situation where you've got just your home and no advantages or other assets accessing open market forces, you're pushing shit uphill. It's a problem. And if you look at what your current balances are doing today, and it's super's invested in the usual suspects of investments, up and down, a roller coaster ride. So if something like that occurs as an event close to your retirement, it means you'll work for longer. And at the moment, you're going to have to. So just to clean this up a bit, we're drawing a circle. That's your corporation. Your income going into that. Your tax coming out of that. In this example, that's $990,000 in tax between now and when that person finishes working. Almost $1 million. Then they've got their mortgage. And let's say that mortgage, as I said, is about $3,000 a month in mortgage payments for about 27 years. So 3,000 by the 12, 36 grand a year by the 27. $972,000. So what that's telling me is on a $350,000 mortgage, that loan estimate of $3,000 probably a bit high. That means they're paying their loan back at a slightly quicker rate, so over and above the minimum payment. So let's say it's 25 years. I'll bring it back to 22 years. So matching that to their retirement term. So still the same issues are there, doesn't go away. So 3,000 by the 12 by over 22 is 792,000. So that's getting closer to what we traditionally see. What we typically see is that a home will cost you about double home loan from the banks, from any bank for that matter. Not about bashing banks. It's just about not having a plan, not having a strategy, not having anything else working for you. And no one in that kind of institution or that have got their blinkers on are going to be able to help you put that in place. And I'd ask, why hasn't your incumbent advisor, your accountant, your broker, your other advisor done something to fix it? Why haven't you done something to fix the amount of tax you pay? Why have you done something to pay off your mortgage more quickly? Why have you done something to help you get ahead, to grow your asset pool, to put you in a better position for your retirement, for your future, because you need to, because your numbers say you do, and numbers don't lie. So your tax at say 990,000, about $1 million, and then your mortgage at 792,000. That's a problem, would you say? That's about a $1.6, $1.7 million problem. Being conservative on those tallies there. 1.7 mil in total tax and mortgage payments. Out the door to give you a debt-free home, that great Australian dream. So you're the guys, you're the ones doing it. You work your backsides off to get the money in, to pay the tax, to pay your mortgage, then have a bit left over your living expenses, to maybe save some. If you do, you put that into your mortgage, to have a $1.7 million problem. So this is an emotional question because you're doing it. How does that make you feel? So on that, we haven't even looked at the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is on the other side of this calculation, and that is your super and your retirement shortfall, or your super. And super is an important scheme, and super is a retirement savings scheme promoted and offered by the government with a lower tax rate to help people save for their retirement. And you should contribute to super because it's going to be very important to you when you retire or get close to retirement. It's going to give you liquidity and access to cash assets to help you draw incomes in the form of pension or other income, lump sum, to be able to fund yourself, or not fund yourself perhaps, but at least have some money for your retirement. So it's an important part of anyone's future. But until the day you take control of it, you should perhaps treat it as you do now. Perhaps with not knowing where your money is currently invested, not knowing, other than the fund name, what your money is actually doing exactly today. The question I have for you is, why would you do that when it's the biggest asset, the biggest investment asset on your balance sheet? This situation we had, 180 plus 40, about 220K. About 220,000 in investable super monies. And when I ask where's that money invested, the response would be Australian super or something like that. But no, where's the money actually invested today? I don't know. Or it's in balance. Okay, so what does that mean? Where is it actually invested to? And they don't know. So given it's the biggest financial asset on their balance sheet, I can guarantee if that money was in a bank account, you would have looked at it today and looked at it yesterday, and you know exactly what it's got. So the view to super needs to change because currently, and it started at about 9.25%, now it's 9.5%. It's going to grow to about 12% or thereabouts in terms of your income as a contribution to super. So your hard-earned, so it's going to get to the point where $2 in every 20, $2 in every $20 you earn is going to go to super. So you think that's something you should know about where it's invested and what it's doing? It's your money. And so we'll get to that. But at the moment, it's an elephant in the room because based on its current balance, and say it's 220,000, and based on the years left working of some 22 years, and based on the income being 170,000, we've got, say, 9.5% on today's figures of 16 grand in contributions. That'll grow. Let's call it 17.5 to kind of take a more averaged approach. And we're going to do that for 22 years. That's 385,000 in contributions on top of the 220. So 605,000. The thing is, And this is an old rule of thumb, that balanced or growth assets that return a return of, say, 7.2% each year compounded, so invested and compounded over a 10-year period will double in value. So if we've got 220 now by 2, in 10 years' time it can be worth 440, and in 20 years' time by 2, 880. So let's say it's worth 880, let's call it $900,000. Plus your contributions, which 17.5 by that 22 was 385. So we've got, say, a super balance of about $1.2 to $1.3 million. Now that's going to be someone who retires in 22 years' time. Now I've put to you that that's going to leave you with a shortfall. Because based on the cost of living now and the 4 main issues facing that Australian households face are: 1, the financial issues, tax, mortgage, retirement. 2, the cost of living, so how expensive it is. To the next point, people spend all that they earn. And finally, consumer credit. They're the 4 main issues facing Australian households. So with the cost of living being one of those, and that increase in cost as part of the constant economic growth that we chase in our society, that pushes things up, expenses up. So that's going to leave you with a shortfall. And I don't care what anyone says, because if you look at what people need now, people who retire today will need 2/3, 66%. So 2/3 of their pre-retirement income. Now, if you're on a big income, you're not going to need that. We have to bring it back and normalize that to the average weekly earnings to take a more reasonable approach. But even on that, if let's just say that the average weekly earnings and measuring it against, say, 170K by 2/3, that's 112K. Look, I think that's too much. We need to bring it back, and I think it sits more like 65 to 70K. So let's say 70K, and you need that for 20-odd years in retirement, because people retire at the age of 65 to 67, they live for about 85, a bit longer. So by 20 years, that's about 1.4, just even on that math alone. Now, there's some simplicity to this, but this is painting a picture at this stage. This is a mud map. And then we go away and we do the specific calculations. But either way, no matter which way you look at it, simple or detailed calcs, you're going to have a shortfall. You've got a big problem to start with tax and mortgage of some 1.7 mil out the door. And then you've got a retirement shortfall. Well, at the moment, you need about 1.4, and that's on today's dollars. You put a future value calc to that, you need a lot more, and you're going to have about 1.2, so there's a shortfall. And given that people spend all that they earn, and the savings you make are minimal, trying to save for your retirement anyway doesn't make sense, because you're not putting your money best to work, and you're not going to get to where you need to be. So the shortfall, if you look at a future value calc, could be over $500,000. And I know if you look at your situation and put a conservative forecast to what you need, and then even conservative to slightly aggressive forecast to what you're going to have, you're going to find the shortfall, because people now, if you retire today, need about $1 million. I know that when speaking with my neighbour across the road, that when he looked at his retirement, he had total assets of some $1 million, and he was really concerned about how he could live on $80,000 a year. Really concerned to the point that he kept on working. That was not driven by us. That was him taking a completely considered approach to his incomes and expenses and knowing, well, you know what, I don't have enough. And when you've got the option to, you get the time horizon on your side, why would you run the risk of falling short when all you need to do is put in place a simple plan to fix it? And the problems are there that need to be fixed quite clearly. So, guys, look, where we're up to in terms of our agenda we set forward for this radio show, number 1, part 2, was to look at your situation, look at your numbers, and then from there do some projections about what your numbers mean to you. And as a summary, I'd ask the following questions. When you look at your balance sheet, so your assets and your liabilities, What issues do you see? And how can you go about fixing that? Then, when you look at the numbers we've just analysed and the projections we've calculated, look at the problems or issues and deficiencies that have been clearly flagged, what are the problems you see? And how are you going to go about fixing that? How are you going to fix the tax, the mortgage and retirement shortfall? How are you going to take control back and put in place a structure that allows you to get ahead? So that's often where people would talk to us. So I'm going to finish part 2 now, move on to part 3. We start to get into the really sexy part. We start to look at the strategy, structure and solution, how you can take control. Because the good news is you can do something about this. Okay, thank you.